Bitcoin breaks all-time highs and crypto prices rally across the board, but are we due for a market correction? We cover all this right now in the Collective Shift weekly recap, actionable insights and a breakdown into the crypto market, all in under 30 minutes. As always, we'll start with a market update, followed by some important ETF news, and also some must-know altcoin updates. Let's get into it right now with the market update, and no surprises here. We'll kick things off with Bitcoin breaking above its previous all-time highs. So it broke into the 70,000 mark, US dollars that is. We celebrated here in Australia hitting all-time highs against the Australian dollar a few weeks ago, but at the time of recording, Bitcoin is now around 71,500 US dollars. I think it did creep up above 72,000 for a brief moment there, but yes, all of the crypto community was celebrating over the weekend, and we also saw some positive signs across the market, really, with Ethereum also breaking above 4,000 for the first time in a very long time. So we still have, two of the majors there in ETH and Solana still below their previous all-time highs. ETH is a bit closer than Sol, but Bitcoin definitely still leading the charge here, as it has done really the past 18 months or so. Just some little indicators for you to maybe just think about. Something I've just noted over the past few days as I'm trying to gauge where we're at in this market cycle. We do have the fear and greed index around all-time highs. That is a popular sort of sentiment metric that gathers just how emotional or how excited people are about the markets. We've got popular musicians like Drake posting about Bitcoin, presidential candidates like Donald Trump now commenting on Bitcoin and actually talking, not negatively about it, which is actually, a refreshing take, but hard to believe, hard to read into it too much. And we've also got meme coins, so the really high risk, speculative sort of cryptocurrencies out there, going absolutely crazy in terms of price action. People, making hundreds of thousands of dollars sort of overnight, which, doesn't seem sustainable to me. So look, all of this together, I don't think is sort of sustainable. And I think it all sort of signals that the market is due for a bit of a correction at some stage. But if you tell me still if you ask me what my thoughts are for 2024, I would still say we end the year, quite a bit higher than where we are today. That's just my opinion anyway. But yeah, quite a crazy, week, yes, Nick, as well, but really quite a few extended, 18-month period or so where crypto just continues to be going up.
Yeah, it's been a wild week, and I think it's only going to keep coming, especially now with the ETF inflows that only look like they're ramping up, which I know I'm probably was surprised to the upside with these ETFs. I think they hit $10 billion since their launch, which I think was more than the yearly record in 2021 in terms of money flowing into these exchange products. I think they even surprised some of the Bloomberg analysts because I think now they're hitting the best case scenarios that they were anticipating. So I think everyone was quietly surprised. Maybe everyone was quietly optimistic as well. They don't want to get too ahead of themselves, but the ETFs just continue to go strong, even though they're kind of hamstrung. This was something that I learned this week, that the ETFs still cannot be offered to people who are sort of asking for it. They're kind of hamstrung in a way in who they can offer them to and the process in which they can offer the Bitcoin ETFs and advise their clients for these big asset managers. And I saw there's a really good quote by Bitwise CIO, Chief Investment Officer. I was run through this now. He just said that he suspects to see more significant inflows in Q2, and he expects these to accelerate as investors become more confident with the products. So it certainly doesn't look like these are slowing down. And even if we look at the impact with the likes of BlackRock, who are even starting to offer some Bitcoin exposure in their funds in a few of the selected investment products, as well as Fidelity, who now offer, I think, 1 to 3% exposure to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in a lot of their flagship funds. So it sort of only looks like this is getting started, and really excited to see when we're going to see this 10% figure hit by Bitcoin held by ETFs, which I was anticipating it might take a whole year, but now we're seeing potentially Q3 with the rapid adoption of ETFs, which I'm very shocked to see.
So that's percentage, so all the ETF issuers out there, how much Bitcoin are they holding Nick, are you saying that that's creeping up? What do you reckon it's at the moment, roughly?
So at the moment, it's about 4.5%. And it entered before the ETFs were approved at about 2 to 3%. So they're anticipating quite a lot more of the supply just to continue to be held by ETF issuers, who of course have to buy the spot Bitcoin from the market to backstop these funds. So I was anticipating it might take a couple of years to get to 10 to 15%, but it actually looks like we may hit 10% closer to the end of the year, which really shocked me if we do see it play out that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And if these comments from Bitwise's CIO and other comments we've been seeing over the past few weeks turn out to be true, that is that there's still trillions of dollars out there in the US economy alone that simply doesn't have access yet to these Bitcoin ETFs, just because of really compliant measures such as due diligence and whatnot, which can take 6 to 12 months in these larger sort of pools of capital, which for obvious reasons. So we've got here major wirehouses, institutional consultants, and large corporations. So really these much bigger asset managers and advisors out here that are soon going to be able to get access to these Bitcoin ETFs if what this speculation here from Bitwise's CIO is. Obviously they are the issuer of one of these ETFs, so they would like that to be true, but with the momentum that's been going on, it's hard not to see this happening. So to really take a step back here, the reason why we are at all-time highs in Bitcoin for Bitcoin's price, the main reason for that, particularly the last sort of 2-3 months of running up, has just been the impressive results from this Bitcoin ETF. So it's been 10, 11 years of applications, and they finally got approved early January. We saw that approval, everyone celebrated, but what's happened in the weeks since has been stronger than expected demand for these ETFs, and that is really what has driven up the price. And now, as Nick had just said there's a massive amount more pool of capital that's still going to be onboarded into these ETF products, and that is still going to be coming out in the months ahead. So, that is a big reason why I think a lot of people are excited. And Nick, I've expected over my years investing in crypto to have already seen a 20 or 30% pullback in prices in this run up. I think we're now in our 7th straight month of Bitcoin going up, really, without much of a retracement at all. And I have to think that a big reason why we're not seeing like these 20 to 30% corrections that we always see historically in crypto bull markets, I have to think a main reason for that is that people are seeing, this massive wave of capital that is still to come, and therefore they're choosing not to hold. But I don't know, that's just something I've been thinking about recently as well. We will move on though to, non-Bitcoin stuff, and this is a must talk for this episode as well. I feel like we've been talking about it for a while, but for good reason. I'll hand over to you, Nick, in terms of an upcoming upgrade for Ethereum.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. This is indeed, actually, I remember being on the pod and even talking to our community about this upgrade that, back in 2022 when they were looking to try and get it out in 2023. But this is Ethereum's Dencun upgrade. Essentially, it's first upgrade in about a year. And the big takeaway here is it's going to be lowering gas fees on Ethereum networks that are built on top. So these L2s like Optimism and Arbitrum, they're going to be getting considerably cheaper to use. This is just a huge deal because at the moment they're still just far too costly for the average person to use. Just to do an ETH swap, for example, an Optimism today takes about 30 cents just to do a simple ETH swap. If you want to do ETH transfer, so if you want to do a more sophisticated swap, it's going to cost you 50 to 60 cents, or to mint an NFT might be 70 cents. So this is far too high for anybody to endure, and the early adopters will really take a 70% gas fee just to use the network and support these Ethereum L2s. But after this upgrade, hopefully we start to see gas fees come down quite a lot. So this is going to be the big focus I'm looking at, and I think the market will really judge Ethereum on is how far will these gas fees reduce on L2s, and is it sustainable? Because we might see a huge demand and activity actually flow back to Ethereum and its L2s if the gas fees are cheaper, which then theoretically just encourages that activity, which then drives up the gas fees anymore. So this is going to be the narrative I think we're all going to be watching, and hopefully we can see maybe long-lasting fee help for Ethereum, who really struggling still because competitors like Solana, like Sui, still much cheaper to use, and we're only going to see more of these L1s come to market, which I'm going to be talking about later in the altcoin section.
Yeah, well said. I think a lot of people with a very keen interest to see the impact from this Dencun upgrade, which will be going live, and we'll see the fee impacts over the coming days and weeks. But yeah, very exciting times in Ethereum.
By the end of this pod, we sort of goes live, so it's tipped to go live tomorrow. So hopefully by the time this airs, it's running successfully and the upgrade was successful. And if not, I think we got a lot to talk about next week in the pod then.
Yeah, for sure. Sticking with the Ethereum space as well, we'll go on back to ETFs, but we've seen a lot of excitement late last year, early this year about Ethereum potentially getting an ETF or a spot ETF in the US. A lot of hopes were pinned on May the 23rd. That is when a particular ETF application has its final deadline. So the SEC has to either approve or reject that application. And if it was to approve, you would likely see the SEC let every application through, just like it did in early January. As we've been talking, over the weeks, the sentiment towards the SEC approving an Ethereum ETF has started to decline, and that definitely was notable last week with the Bloomberg ETF analysts, who are very much like a barometer of just a lot of people's de facto, I guess, researchers for this, given their expertise, and they have lowered their estimate or their probability of an ETF approval happening in the month of May. So they've lowered that now to a 30% chance. So, as Nick and I actually spoke about on this podcast, and I believe in some member content as well, we said really the main indicator, the main thing to watch, I think maybe if we're talking in January or last month, I think we said the main thing to watch between now and coming up to May was just the amount of announcements coming out from the applicants about whether they are working with the SEC. And we said to look for the amount of amendments that are filed with the SEC. So how many times are the likes of Fidelity and Bitwise, how many times are they updating their filing and refiling it to the SEC? Because that is a very strong signal that they are in talks with the SEC, who are actively, sort of talking about ways that they would increase the chance that they'll approve it. We said that is the number one indicator to watch, and right now, as of middle of March, we haven't seen any of that. And we said if there isn't many updates, then that would not be great news for the odds of an ETF approval happening in May. And that's exactly what has happened. And yeah, it doesn't really look, the optimism is really sort of shaking out of the Ethereum community for a May approval. I don't know. I think if we get one this year, I'd be pretty happy as an ETH sort of investor and just an ETH enthusiast, but I'm not really hanging out for it. I think there will be one in time, but May would be quite a shock. But this year, I would still think, look, if it was this year, it would probably be much later in the year.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. I know we were both quite shocked to see those high probabilities initially, even what the market was taking into account, which I was, very surprised to see such confidence in May date. But yeah, I'm definitely anticipating a denial. And even if it's approved, I don't think anybody expects staking to be included in any approval.
Yeah, for sure. We'll stick with the SEC. So yeah, the securities watchdog over in the US. And yeah, what have you got in terms of an update from them this week, Nick?
Yeah, always a lot of action with the SEC in the last few years, haven't it? But this one was a major one with ShapeShift, which was a former centralized exchange, which kind of pivoted their business model to become a DeFi, Web3 first platform and a DEX. They got a settlement with the SEC just for acting as an unregistered security dealer. The big, I think, takeaway and story from this announcement was that there was probably the biggest dissent from two of the commissioners, basically poking kind of fun at the SEC for their controversial decisions not to really provide any clarity on which securities they're referring to here. So they've kind of lumped together and provided a really big, broad brushstroke, just labeling securities in general, but they've yet to really talk about which cryptocurrencies that ShapeShift did sell were securities. I think the biggest thing I took from this was that if you look to the filing, the two commissioners wrote a mini screenplay kind of making fun of the SEC and the kind of toxic environment that a lot of crypto startups have to deal with at the moment, which I don't think I've ever seen a dissent of this magnitude, really putting full pressure on the other three SEC commissioners to kind of step up and act in the space, because it's kind of acting like a bit of a clown show at the moment, where you're seeing two of these commissioners just openly mocking the SEC's stance on crypto and its kind of attack on it. I don't know about you, Matt, but if you've ever seen anything like that.
No, I think it's very healthy, I think, for a country as big as the US to be able, where commissioners are able to speak out against their own agency. But I can't remember that happening any other time. But yeah, it's quite something to see this strong disagreement continue over for a number of years now. So yeah, we'll watch this space. But yeah, thanks for that update. And just quickly here, another one from MicroStrategy. So another week, another ETF story. Then there's another week, another MicroStrategy update of it buying more Bitcoin. So they call themselves like a Bitcoin development company these days, and they have now brought another batch of Bitcoin, so about 12,000 BTC they announced within the last week. So their holdings are now over 200,000. So we don't normally share our updates on MicroStrategy on this podcast, just because they happen so often. But we thought this one was particularly notable now that their holdings are over 200,000. So keeping in mind that maximum supply of Bitcoin will be 21 million, it won't be too long, really getting extremely close to MicroStrategy holding 1% of total supply of Bitcoin, which for one individual company is quite a feat for sure. So we'll see if they ever stop. I'm not sure if they'll ever stop buying, but it's definitely a nice sort of support there to always be bidding on the price of Bitcoin. And I'm sure a lot of the Bitcoin crowd is loving that, with Michael Saylor doing the rounds on media, doing a lot of interviews as well in the last week or so, educating people about the benefits of Bitcoin and whatnot. But onto the altcoins now, Nick. We'll head over to just a few of the key updates happening in the world of altcoins from the past week. I'll hand it over to you with Eclipse.
Yeah, so we saw a few raises for more, alternative blockchains and blockchain platforms. So Eclipse is kind of a Frankenstein project, which is trying to take the best bits of Celestia, of Ethereum, and Solana, kind of, what we call modular, just trying to take just the best bits of the different ecosystems to create a unique blockchain of their own. So they raised a 50 million Series A, and they're kind of gearing up for a big potential airdrop for early users that I'm speculating, and a mainnet finally coming, I think, in Q2. So this is going to be one to watch, and we'll start to see whether these, more Ethereum competitors, more Solana competitors potentially, start to gain any traction, and if they offer sort of anything that's really different to the current market. So I'll be continuing to see how the adoption of these alternative layer ones go, because another one is Monad Labs, which is eyeing, I think, a huge multi-million dollar raise, which would put them, I think, at a few $billion valuation. So there's a couple of new blockchains on the scene, which could potentially add competition. And I'm really excited to see how the market responds to this. The big question is always how many blockchains do we need? And I think the Ethereum upgrade that's happening tomorrow will give us a big indication of just how much of these blockchains we do need. And if Ethereum can scale, then maybe it's bearish for these alt ones. But if Ethereum still struggles with high gas, potentially Eclipse, Monad, and all these new launches may still continue to do very well in the future.
Yeah, it's exciting to see those being built and coming out over the next 1 to 2 years, I'd say. Another big update in altcoin world was Wormhole. So, one of the main sort of cross-chain infrastructure providers out there, Again, if this blockchain space is going to grow, I think a lot of people would agree there's going to be, dozens of blockchains, people wanting to, be able to send their capital between chains quite seamlessly and in a secure way. Wormhole's been building that for many years now, and they had a big announcement last week. Their token, which the ticker is just a single letter, which I haven't seen in a while. That's just W. They announced their W token is coming out very soon. So they announced the eligibility criteria for their airdrop, which will be one of the larger airdrops of 2024. That's for sure. So yeah, there was quite a few ways that you could qualify for that airdrop. That is one that we have been covering in our airdrops page that we update for Collective Shift members, as well as part of that page is visible to the public as well, with the best bits kept for members. But we have had Wormhole in there for quite a while now as one of the top candidates for an airdrop. So congratulations to anyone who qualified for that, because I'm sure it will be quite a big airdrop when it does come out in the coming weeks or months. Just another quick reminder just to be aware of scams. Whenever there's an airdrop this size, the attempts of scams and phishing links and whatnot increase dramatically. So just be cautious there as well.
Yeah, it's a tough one out there to be careful. We've got more airdrop updates as well with Camino on Solana. They've kind of announced their airdrop. And then we got, I think that might be happening in about April. And then another leading NFT marketplace in the Solana land, Tensor, revealed initial details of an airdrop, but didn't include any eligibility. So a common theme we were anticipating was this kind of renaissance of tokenization in Solana, kind of having its Ethereum moment, if you will, which is just continuing to ramp up and kind of to play out that way. I think that we're expecting it. So I'm really expecting more of these airdrops that happen for Solana. And potentially this is why we've seen Solana continue to perform really strongly. It's also helped Solana hit all-time highs and new daily, I think, active addresses on the network, and even things like Pantera, a massive VC capital firm looking to buy some Sol off the FTX estate at a bit of a discount. So a lot happening in Solana land, and continue to probably expect more tokenization in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, nice. Last one here, just quickly from Uniswap. They are continuing to put that proposal through the motions with regards to enabling protocol revenue to start to be shared with uni stakers and delegators. So that, I believe, passed the second last stage of the governance process, and it's going through, I think, the final vote either at the moment, I believe. And yeah, we'll see if that gets approved. So obviously a watershed moment for Uniswap governance and maybe by extension, just governance of a lot of other DeFi projects who, assuming this does pass, I think you'll see a lot of other DeFi projects sort of taking the lead there and, feeling confident that they can now turn on some of their fees and pass them on to holders and stakers, maybe because Uniswap, if there was going to be any regulatory action, they'd probably take the bullet. And they'd be the biggest target. So we might see, what happens down the line. But yeah, Uniswap definitely, getting a lot of attention at the moment too. So that wraps up what a lot of altcoin updates going on at the moment. But they're probably some of the main ones that we do. But we do focus a lot of content at Collective Shift on altcoins as well, and in our community too. But sort of connected to that also is this week ahead. So not just the Ethereum upgrade coming up in the coming days for the Dencun upgrade, but there's a lot else to get excited about. We have two conferences that actually are not in the crypto space, but they are very, I guess, adjacent to crypto. And we do have some crypto projects, some altcoins in particular, connected to these events. So just quickly here, we've got the Game Developers Conference, so GDC. That's happening, I think, in California somewhere. That is March 19th through to March 23rd. Will we see some crypto projects, making some announcements, some crypto gaming projects, that is, making some announcements? I would expect to see so. That's one of the largest, for anyone unaware, GDC is one of the largest sort of annual events globally in the gaming industry. And then secondly, we have NVIDIA's GTC. So that is an annual conference, obviously organized by NVIDIA. And that is one of the largest sort of events on the calendar for all things AI and accelerated computing. So that is March 18th through March 21st. More, I guess, specifically for altcoins, we have, two projects in particular that are part of the speaking lineup. So Near Protocol's co-founder is speaking on a panel that involves NVIDIA's CEO. So that's a very big, very big moment there for Near Protocol. We'll see what comes of that. And also Render Network, they have their co-founder is also presenting in sort of a keynote on one of the stages there. So yeah, those two, we've seen AI tokens really catching quite a bit and rallying quite hard in the past few days. I think partially because of the speculation and anticipation of this GTC event, and we might see the same with gaming tokens as well. But that's all for me. Cool. And then finishing off with our underappreciated, overappreciated. Nick, what have you got for us this week?
Yeah, I've got something that I actually sort of underappreciated or overlooked in the last couple of months, which was some interesting filings by Sony, who last year starting to do filings for blockchain stuff. And in late February and early March, they released another patent looking into so-called super fungible tokens, or SNFTs. Just a really interesting patent because they're essentially trying to bundle together SFTs, which bundle NFTs that are tied to in-game assets like skins or weapons or different potions. So this is going to be a really big potential catalyst for the gaming space. If we do see big names like Sony start to introduce NFTs and on public blockchains or distributed ledgers on their gaming infrastructure, which would be a huge catalyst, I think, for a lot of gaming cryptocurrencies. And curious to see if this is only going to be a little patent that a lot of these big companies file anyway, or if it's something that they actually action and roll out across the huge, fast network of games. So one to watch for Sony, definitely.
Yeah, good pick up there, Nick. We'll see what comes of that, if anything. But we will leave it there for this week. A lot going on. Hope you are enjoying this bull market. And if you are looking for more insights as this bull market continues, do check out our revamped weekly Shift newsletter, providing free weekly market insights every Friday. Subscribe at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. That's collectiveshift.io/newsletter.